Hey everybody, thank you for hitting play on the Project Management and Public Safety Planning Parallels presentation. It's a lot of P's. I'm your host, Kevin Pinnell. I am a project management leader now by way of public safety and emergency management. And what I found before I transitioned into project management proper was that the planning we would use for special events, national level events, or response after disasters was almost identical, just with different terms and different methodologies than project management, whether it's waterfall or agile, very similar. And so I'm going to go through that today. I was fortunate to share this with some members of the Project Management Institute a few months ago, and then help a local fire department stand up their project management office, or at least practices. So real quick, a little bit about me. I was a hospital corpsman in the U.S. Navy, transitioned to IT, working on computers, was in public safety as an EMS captain, a volunteer firefighter, and in public health. And now I'm in healthcare IT as a project management leader. Got some relevant certifications in the industry. You'll see there in the credentials. And I'm married. I have 3 sons, 2 dogs, a garage gym, and a cold plunge that I use regularly. I highly recommend you all keep getting after it. It makes us better planners, team members, etc. So let's get into some of this information, how these are the same, maybe some new information for you. And please like and subscribe to the People Process Progress YouTube channel. I share fitness ideas 15 seconds at a time, some after action reports from jiu-jitsu, and I'll do more of these educational videos if you find them helpful. Leave your questions in the comments below. So I started this with a quote from a fire chief, and it was in Harvard Business Review, and it really has to do and encompasses how much money we, not just this was focused on public safety and fire, but really the industry, any industry spends on projects, and a lot of them fail. And why is that? I believe it's because folks don't always work together well on a process and stay in sync and communicate openly. And I'll touch on 5 foundational things that people can do, especially project managers or public safety project leaders, to help their people stay in sync. So let's talk about our priorities: outcomes, relationships, process. And for a second, let's pause and think about, like, what order would you put these in? I know what I put them in, and I'm going to show you all in a minute, but let's take a second and think about this. So for me, the very first thing that has to be there, that is most important, particularly if I show up at a locality that asks for my help after disaster, they don't know me, they don't know who I am, they just said, we need help organizing, or someone said, we want to put this new software in, we need someone like a project manager to help us, is relationships, right? We have to be able to talk to people. We have to have the soft skills as project managers and as team leaders and as incident management team members, not just the hard skills of forms and the tactics that are cool that we know, but we have to be able to relate to people, understand that we're here to help them. I'm here to help and work with the person that put in the request for this project and support the sponsor. And just like I'm here to help the mayor of the city or the county administrator who said, hey, please come help us. Then what we want to do is focus on the outcomes. What are we trying to achieve? What do you want us to help with? What do you want us to stay away from? And we need to have those guardrails in place so they are clear, so that myself as the planning section chief, typically, so the facilitator of the process, and certainly our team leader, incident commander, or commander, or our sponsor for projects, know, like, this is what we want to achieve. And then we'll focus on process. And it's in this order because, right, without relationships, we're probably not going to have a good outcome. And without relationships and outcomes, it doesn't matter what process we use, it's going to be a mess. It's going to be a failure. So that's where I can get into, okay, based on the relationships we have, based on the outcomes that we want to achieve, which process makes sense? The planning P for public safety, the project P, that I'll go over here in a second, agile, waterfall, scrum, a component, an amalgam of those, a WAGIL mix thing. We make the process fit what the outcomes we want to achieve are. So what are some objectives here? Let's just circle back on those. So good process transcends industry, right? I use many of the same planning tactics today and hard and soft skills in project management that I did in public safety. That there are 5 foundational elements of good planning, and I'll touch on those here in a little bit, obviously. And again, relationships over outcomes and outcomes over process is going to be a theme, and it should be a theme throughout your tenure in facilitating whatever project, program, portfolio, public safety response, planned event, etc. Really keep that in mind. So this course that I taught before covers strategic and tactical planning. Again, strategic is big picture, tactical is down, boots on the ground, some foundational concepts, the project management big 3 things to consider, A foundational charter you can go over, prioritization, reporting, and communication. That's key components of a good project management office. And then we touched on the ad card change management, and that's one methodology. But this is a course that I've taught that I can teach. So get a hold of me here at peopleprocessprogress.com if you're interested in that. It can be virtual or in person. But let's get into these parallels between project management and public safety planning. So let's pause again and do some basic review. What is a project? Well, the standard we use, and that's largely industry, is the Project Management Institute, or PMI, and it's temporary and it's unique. Remember those two bold words there, right? So projects shouldn't happen forever. That's operational support, right? Or that's whatever business is happening day to day by public utilities. It isn't us showing up after a landslide, and it's not us putting a new product in place and then stepping away. So what is project management? Really, it's making that happen, right? It's using our knowledge, our team's knowledge, their skills, the tools, techniques, and making sure we have those clear requirements. What are the requirements we need, technical or non-technical, to achieve those outcomes? So it's temporary and unique, and we're going to use knowledge, skills, tools, techniques to make sure we get the requirements we need for projects. So we talk about project management and incident management. So let's switch to incidents then. So what is an incident? For me, it's unplanned, right? Something happened. There was a car accident. There was a hurricane, and even though we know about it, but we didn't know the impact. Fire, like in California, or anything that's usually temporary also, right? A lot of, even as bad as they are, incidents, they don't last forever, at least from a incident management standpoint. Sure, all the emotional and psychological stuff does. So what is all hazard incident management? It's an integrated, which means we're all working together. Whatever badge, collar device, title you have, we're all going to work together. And it's a framework we use, and I'll touch on that here in a little bit, but it's similar, right? And the framework is that part where we say, okay, what part of this planning P, which is what we use in public safety, are we going to use? Because you don't need to use all of it all the time, and that's key to remember, is make it fit the situation you're in. So let's go back to project management, and this is some standard stuff that public safety folks, if you're charged at a fire department, police department, whatever it is, 911 center, any other flavor of public safety, saying, hey, I'd like you to take on this project. Well, what does that mean? So in the project management world, portfolios is everything you have, right? This is all your stuff, your portfolio of projects. Below that is the programs, right? So these are groups of projects together that make up the portfolio, and then within those programs are projects, and those programs could be focused on, this one's focused on logistics, and this one's focused on training, and this one's focused on something else from a public safety standpoint. And then the projects you do are the individual courses, the regular maintenance you have to do, things like that. So how does that equate to our incident management world? Let's take a look at that. So we have incident types in incident management that go from 1 to 5. 1 is the biggest, 5 is the smallest. You can see all those things on the screen there. And so your portfolio kind of parallel is the type 1. It's really big. So imagine like the 9/11 attacks. There were everything we have to do. Let's just focus on ground zero, not the Pentagon. And 9/11 was everything's here. So within here, what do we have to do? Body recovery, hazard mitigation. There's a bunch of different programs, and the projects are all those individual items of work. Then you scale that as you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? 5 is kind of your day-to-day calls. You can see that there. So top to bottom. Now let's overlay for our agile folks out there. What does that mean when we use t-shirt sizes? So if you're not familiar with that, it means we, similarly to the type 1, would say that's a big project in an agile world, right? That's going to take a lot of resources, time, money. We're going to have to do multiple iterations. And then you go on down, right? This is large, medium, small, extra small. So you can see parallels where the portfolio is everything that you do in whatever industry of project management you're doing, made of programs that are then made of projects. Just like you go from a type 1 incident to a type 5 incident for public safety stuff, from biggest to smallest, same thing on a t-shirt size, extra large down to extra small for agile. So it's good to think of those mindsets and how you can move between industries if you know these concepts. So who's who in project and incident management? So if you look on the left there, the sponsor, business owner, and project manager typically are the kind of trifecta of leadership for any project in the waterfall world. That's what we're going to talk about because it's the most basic standard of project management. Not going to get into Scrum and Agile really other than that t-shirt size deal. And then what I like that directly carries over, which we'll touch on here in a second, are groups. This means they're functional groups. We have a technical group, we have a clinical group, a policy group, and a communications group. And so that's a really good standard to use for if you're just getting into project management or you're trying to clean up or optimize how your project management office is working. is just look at who's the sponsor, which means an executive level person that can make any decision on the project, pretty much. The business owner who's closest to what this thing should do, this new device, new software, new process, whatever it is. Us, the project managers that are going to help facilitate the process. And then what are the groups of subject matter experts we need to help us make that plan? So let's take a look at the incident command system. So at the top, your quadfecta, whatever there's four, right? So there's an incident commander that's like your sponsor, your safety officer, which other than incident commander, the only ones that can stop it, saying, hey, it's unsafe, stop for a second. That's their whole job. Those are pretty, the liaison officer makes sure we're all playing nice together in the sandbox, has contact information. The public information officer is pushing out info. They're controlling the media. I've talked about that on the People Process Progress podcast about how not to do public information after disaster, specifically with the example of the New Orleans attack, which was just a mess. And honestly, now some of the stuff coming out of the California wildfires, not from the firefighters in the incident command and the team and the incident management team that's doing it, more from the officials. And then you'll see in blue the planning section. That's the project management office of an incident management team. Operations are the folks that do it. That's your groups that are getting it done. You can even see the second layer down in red there is groups and functional. You can have divisions, right? Companies have divisions, the Eastern Division, the Northern Division. Directly translates incident management. And then you have strike teams. So that's all the same kind of thing. So a whole bunch of technical analysts or a whole bunch of, let's say, one specific analyst, an electronic health record analyst, mixed with network folks. That would be a task force, that next block over. In yellow, logistics, they get us the stuff, the facilities, the medical support. They're comprised of units, and then finance admin, they cut us the checks, make sure we're following policy and all that good stuff. So this is a snapshot for the folks that aren't in public safety, they're in project management, of how we organize when we would start standing up a planned event or a response. And I'm going to show you a pretty amazing organizational chart that I was fortunate to be part of. In that planning section is the resource unit leader, meaning I was in charge of accountability, making sure everybody was safe. Where are they? For a very large type 1 incident, one of those real big national level incidents. So this was, as you can see down the bottom, the UCI Road Worlds in September 2015 with 994 team members. All those boxes are people or multiple people. And I'm in one of the boxes over here in the planning section. As you can imagine, we had challenges in communication. I had challenges in making assumptions of how my team was doing things. So I had to show up and help correct and make flow. But the gist of it is, this is one org chart. There's not this org and another org, and we have different plans. This was the greatest, I think, evolution of incident management in the region that I worked in, which was Central Virginia. And it was just an amazing experience to be part of, and just wanted to show you, like, that's a lot of people. And again, each of those boxes isn't just one person, it's multiple people, teams, groups, etc. So what are the basics on how we got this to work? And let me touch on this. So the unified command, so that's a bunch of leaders together. The technology section, so their whole focus is, are we up? Do we have network? Do we have all the computers? Planning, that's where I was. Logistics, so they're getting us all the stuff. Finance, intelligence, because it was a large sporting event. So of course, there is law enforcement intelligence going on. What are threats? What are dangers? Those kind of things is unfortunately in this day and age, and even back then, 10 years ago, that there's threats everywhere, and that sucks. And then operations. So these are the people getting it done. And in the incident management world and the public safety world, every other box is here to make sure they're safe and they have what they need and their supplies. Just like on a project team, me as the project manager, the business owner, the sponsor, our legal team, whomever is here to make sure that the folks we've asked to build the system, to configure the hardware, are safe, have the resources they need, and are open, communication with us to make sure that, they don't wait. So it was a lot to have this many people support this many people, which the bulk of folks were in operation. So how do we, circling back, how did we make this happen? Leader's intent, right? We had this is one of those foundational 5. We had a clear intent from that unified command at the top. We're all going to work together on a shared process. We're going to communicate openly. We're going to be civil to each other, like all these guidance, right? Basically work together, be cordial, don't let your different patches, cause a stink and all that kind of stuff, and make sure that our people are safe and the public is safe. That's kind of the gist of that. Then we had SMART objectives, right? We had them for the entire event. We touched on them and reviewed them every day to make sure they were still relevant, right? We want to accomplish this task. So SMART, again, is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-based. And you need to make sure, especially when you have, this was, I think, 9 days actually, and it was years planning. So when you actually get into something that is a short amount of time based on tons of planning, you want to make sure that your assumptions, just like in a project that you made a year ago when you actually start the project, are still relevant. So your objectives need to still line up. Combined organization, right? You gotta have one team. That's it. It can be an org chart, just like that big one in the background has multiple sections, but you shouldn't have different plans when you're working on the same project. It's inefficient, and in public safety, it's unsafe. And you read an after action report from any bad thing that's happened, it's gotten people killed, whether it's the public or public safety people. Shared resources. We have to share the cases of water. We have to share, the bullets, the Band-Aids, the bandoliers, whatever across public safety that, oh, no, this is mine. No, that's yours. We're all together, right? We're all here. We're all trying to keep our people safe and fed and hydrated, and then look out for the public. And in project management, same thing, right? If I have someone that has knowledge and I know of it and it could help this other project, I need to offer them up if they have time and say they can help. The last thing is open communication. That's both a positive and a negative on almost every after action or lessons learned from project management. And I found it's because some people are afraid to speak because maybe they've been told don't say anything in the past, and that's not cool. So here again is a review of kind of those foundational 5, right? Leader's intent. The sponsor on projects is going to give that to us, or the incident commander for a public safety event. There's SMART objectives. I, as the project manager, or when I was a planning section chief, I'm going to work with the incident commander, but largely we're going to come up with those with our team and then say, hey, incident commander, hey, sponsor, do these make sense? Is there something else we need to add or tweak? We're going to establish that clear organization. And so that's going to be the business owner that knows their space for a project, who should be on this team. And I'm going to help make that happen as the project manager. Or the operations section chief in public safety is the expert that knows this area, whether it's a flood response like swift water rescue, or whether it's triage, treatment, and transport and EMS. But they're going to tell us what they need for the plan, and then we're going to work with logistics to get it. And we're not just going to ask for stuff. We're going to have efficient resource coordination. And so typically project managers do that. They ask for resources and work with resource managers. In incident management, it's the logistics section chief. And I say efficient. So a great acronym to remember there is CSALT, and that's capability, size, amount, location, time, and type. So you're going to say, what's this resource? How long can they be with us? Where does it need to report to? How long is it going to be there? And then the incident management world, particularly think of the California wildfires, there are so many different types of dozers, bulldozers, literally, right? That you need to be specific on. Is it a type 1, 2, a size? And I'm not a logistics guy, but you need to be specific for, let's say, project management and IT. I need an analyst that has this skill or that skill, right? So I don't just say I need an analyst and I could get someone that has no idea what we're doing or how to solve or create the system we're doing. Open and objective communication. So on projects, we need to make sure that's happening as the project manager across the team. And if it's not, that's when we talk to the team member, when we escalate to their leadership, when we just pull the people together and say, look, we need to get better, et cetera. On an incident management team, it's the public information officer that's pushing info out, media messages, controlling the narrative, rumor control, or the liaison officer that's looking internally, like, are there grumblings among the team? Let me get these two groups together, those kind of things. So these are the parallel processes I'm talking about. On the left, which I'm not going to go on because the focus of this is really, I made the process on the right to focus on project management based on that planning P. So Google planning P, or you can see it here if you pause this. This is a process from the leg, which is the very bottom of the P, up and around the circle that we use, right? That you learn from the incident command system basics up through the boot camp for incident management you do, through actually getting signed off out in the field, and then becoming more proficient, where you need to figure out what's happening, you need to get people together, make objectives, you need to have a tactics meeting and specify what you're going to do and how many resources you need and when and where. You're going to go over the plan and make sure it's sound, you're going to present it, get it approved, then you're going to tell the troops what's happening, and then you're going to start working, and you're going to go around in that circle part, the O, the operations O part of that, over and over again. So I thought, I'm a project manager now. I've been in project management a little bit, and I used to do this planning stuff. There's some pretty significant parallels. Let's take a look at this P on the right, which is the project P. So first is an intake process, or should be. If someone says, I want this new system, I want this new widget, I want these new whatevers, you should say, okay, let's ask for it and collect some pertinent information. And then we have to talk about the customer need. What's the need here? Because do they know we already have something that maybe they think they have a need, and they do, but maybe we already have a resolution for it. business case. This is where we get into, here's the thing, how much it's going to cost. And a lot of this is vendor driven, right? What are the agreements? What's the problem it's going to solve, really? What's your user story? It's another Agile component. We want this so that we can accomplish that as this person. The intake, I talked about that. So you should have a form of some type in some tool where you can gather all this, and hopefully it's discrete data fields that are, easy to go through, but it's something, right, an electronic form where you can have all these requests together and then sort them by priority and that kind of stuff. Then we're going to review and approve it, right? Does it make sense? Does it not make sense based on time and money and resources and need and etc. Then we're going to assign a project manager, and this is where we kick in to help, and that's where on the other P, really the planning section chief will get involved and kind of help facilitate the whole process. And we're really going to start up ramping and diving into some planning components now. So we're going to get the sponsor, who's the executive that says, yep, I approved this person asking for it and the budget and all that kind of stuff. The business owner, that's that person again that's closest to it. And then the project manager, and we're going to put those objectives together. I like to actually pencil some in, so to speak, and say, based on the business case, I think these make sense. And then together, we'll go through and kind of massage those. Get those SMART objectives going in the org chart. I like to do that very early, so we're crystal clear on our 2 to 3, 3 to 4, maybe max SMART objectives. And what could an org chart look like? There's no names in it at this point. It's just by functional stuff. Who do we need? Then we're going to have a draft charter, and charters are pretty important. I've talked about those on the People Process Progress podcast as well. It's kind of like an early draft of the incident action plan for public safety folks. And then we're going to have a kickoff meeting based on, we could do that just on the SMART objectives in the org chart, but we'll have a little bit more than that, include some business case stuff like cost and estimated schedule, because then it's estimated. This is all, the plan's not even built out yet. Then we're going to talk to everyone that needs to be there. This doesn't have to be 50, 60 people, right? It can be the sponsor, the project manager, the business owner, pertinent stakeholders, which means folks that are going to be affected by the project, folks that really need to be in the know. And I like to include folks that are on the project team. So right when we start, as far as we know, at least the resource managers that we're going to ask for people for have a really good idea of what's the foundational information for this project. And we do the same thing in the preparing for the tactics meeting, tactics on the left there, where it's like, okay, based on the objectives, how are we going to actually do this? And then we'll start in this next thing to go, okay, it's approved. Now we're going to actually dig into this planning. And that means we're going to say, what's the scope of this? Does it still make sense? How much is it really going to cost us based on the people now that we have? What resources do we need? Those analysts, specialists or networking or whoever it is on the project management side or the public safety folks. What's the realistic schedule now that we've dug into the requirements a little bit more? And then the quality expectations. Can this deliver, and will it stand up to the quality that we think it should as a project management office, as an organization? And then from there, we're going to get it approved, right? We'll document it. Hey, here's the scope, because we'll refer to that. And it doesn't mean your scope can't change, but it shouldn't just change on a whim. It means that this is it until the sponsor and business owner agree with whoever suggests we should change the scope, make it bigger or smaller. And then we're going to go to actually getting the work done, moving to execution, just like over on the left. We're going to have an operations brief and tell everybody. So then we're going to start working, whether it's training or building, prepare for go live, which in project management means we're going to put this new system out, the new workflow in place, whatever it is, the new device people are going to start using. And before we've done that, we will have tested it. We will have trained people on it. It's hard to do that in public safety, but that's why we usually ask for the people that are already trained. Not that we can't have trainees, but if they're going to go out in the field, fighting fires, do those kind of things, we want a team of folks or a strike team or a task force, and they already know what they're doing. They may have some trainees embedded, but it's a bit different. This is in the project world on the right there. I'm a user that's getting a new device that's different from the device I've used for 5 years, so I need to know how to use it and what's different. Then we're going to monitor and control that. That's a very waterfall-y thing, right? We're going to do status reports, see how it's going, check in with users constantly while it's going on, monitor tickets and whatever ticketing system you have. And we're going to continue to evaluate that, right? Constantly tracking those issues. Oh, we've noticed this pop up over and over again. How can we address that on the fly? Can we? Does it have to wait for the next update? Those kind of things. And then when we get toward closing down near the bottom, we're going to conduct lessons learned. We're going to do an online survey, which these days is typically the easiest. We can also do these in person with paper, but a lot less common nowadays, particularly in the project management world. Folks are remote on devices like this or Zoom calls. But send that out, compile that info. What are themes I'm seeing in the word cloud? If you look up word cloud, you can drop in results that you're getting, and it'll kind of put the most common words at the top, which is very helpful. And we want to put the results of that in a report, a closeout report, which means here's what we found and here's what we think we should do about it by this time, right? A lessons learned. And you should do that in the public safety world too. It's called an after action report / improvement plan. The improvement plan is here's what we found and here's what we should fix and by when. So what are these equal to in the project management world? So this whole part is like initiating a project, right? We're thinking about there's a need, we're putting something in, we're starting to kick it off, but we're not really planning yet. Come around the top part of the circle, we're planning. So now we're getting to, that means we're actually getting details of the plan, what's due when, who's doing those tasks. Then we're actually going to do those tasks and build it and test it and go live. And then we're going to close it out, right? Because again, projects are temporary and unique. So this O should not go around forever, just like in the public safety world, it shouldn't go around forever. It could be extended. Like these firefighters are going to be fighting fire in California for weeks, months, perhaps, and then the cleanup and all that stuff. But at some point, it's going to stop. So what did we learn? What I hope you all learned and enjoyed was that good process transcends any industry, right? If you looked at the P on the left and the P on the right, they're very similar. There's a problem identified, there's a need identified, whether it's an event or an incident. Again, event, we know about; an incident, we don't. A project's unique and temporary. Then we're going to gather some information. Then we're going to get some key people together. Then we're going to make objectives. Then we're going to say, okay, is this good? Are we on the same page? Then we're going to actually plan and get the resources and people and products and all that stuff in place. Then we're going to build the thing or stop the flood or find the missing person. And we're going to evaluate that. How's it going? Is it too dangerous out there? Are we spending too much money? That kind of stuff. And then we're going to do that for each thing temporarily and uniquely. You have to then get to the point where you're using these skills, right? You're planning, you're going, cool, yep, we're on the same page. We're building those relationships and then outcomes and then picking the process and understanding like you can do this in either industry. And I know there's folks that are either retiring from public safety or other industries that are like, how do I do this? Well, think about the skills you use in one area, in my instance, and maybe in yours, public safety, and think, how did I get people together? How do I use a common process? What tools do I use? And then you can apply that probably to project management or a similar thing. Those 5 foundational elements, right? We want to have leaders' intent. We want smart objectives. We want effective resource management. We want clear and open communication. And we need to have a functional organization, right? So we know what the leaders want us to do and not do. We know the objectives we're working toward because they're smart, they're specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, they're realistic, and they're time-based. We have an organization that shows who's doing what and who's controlling what function or leading what function. We know the resources we need or don't need. And then we're going to foster open and transparent and objective communication. So I mentioned this piece before, but it's very important, right? We need to establish those relationships very early. We need to focus on what's the outcome we're trying to achieve. And then we need to pick the process that's going to work best for everybody involved. And if we're someone that showed up to help somebody that's not capable of handling it after disaster because they're overwhelmed, rightfully, maybe they're affected, they live there, or a project manager asked to come help a team that needs help facilitating, we're going to also have to educate them. So don't go overboard trying to teach someone the entire process manual of whatever you choose, whether it's Agile or Waterfall or a mix or even the incident command system stuff. Just focus on the practical needs of who you're there to help. I'm here to help you all by way of this video, of the People Process Progress podcast, of the YouTube channel. Thank you all so much. Remember that our hope is what ignites us to do better for ourselves and others. The plans we use should guide the direction that we go in, and the action we take will transform ourselves and those around us.